Good afternoon. Getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at KBC.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, KBC.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all of your favorite podcast platforms. The fireworks on Wall Street continue well after the post-4th of July rally following the signing of the big, beautiful bill. Another record high for the tech names today. The NASDAQ closing up another 53 points at a record high 20,730. The S&P 500 up 20 at 6,264. And the Dow popped 231 points at 44,255. Looks like, once again, the tech names led the rally here today. Also, driving the action, the latest earnings news, and also the latest news out of the White House. President Trump was considering firing Fed Chairman Powell soon, according to Bloomberg, sending stocks lower early on, but the president subsequently said at the Oval Office that he was not planning to do so, despite going on a rant that the Fed chair was not lowering interest rates at his preferred pace and was doing a terrible job in his views. And the president, in his words, said he's doing a lousy job, but no, I'm not talking about that. Fortunately, we get to make a change in the next 8 months or so, and we'll pick somebody that's good, unquote. The president also confirmed a report that said he had asked a meeting of Republican lawmakers late Tuesday whether he should fire the Fed chairman. He said most of the lawmakers said he should do it. Denied another report that said he had drafted a letter to fire the Fed chairman. Well, stocks started mixed today and then turned higher on the latest news out of the White House. Also, we got the latest earnings from Bank of America and Johnson & Johnson, which helped to perk up the mood on Wall Street. We'll be focusing on all of this here in just a moment. All of this after the release of the Consumer Price Index yesterday, which came in a little bit better, a little bit hotter than expected, I should say. And the report today on producer prices came out today, showing prices rose 2.3% at the wholesale level. That came in below analyst expectations. Rigetti Computing, the ticker symbol on that one, RGTI, up nearly 29% today after that company announced it had built the largest multi-chip quantum computer ever seen. Rigetti Computing taking the spotlight, and shares are up about 1,200% since last year. The bond market still on edge over the drama over the Fed chair. We see the yield in the 10-year note moving higher today. In fact, got close to 4.8%. Crypto in focus. This is, after all, Crypto Week in Washington. Bitcoin and crypto stocks also bouncing back today as optimism continues to increase over 3 cryptocurrency bills that were snagged in the House of Representatives yesterday. We'll, of course, be following that story very, very closely. Bitcoin right now hovering just below 119,000. It looks like Doge got a pop today at 21 cents. In Sacramento, the California Senate has passed a bill that would allow Los Angeles to buy fire-ravaged lots to build low-income housing. This 6 months after the firestorm destroyed a large part of Pacific Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. Governor Newsom says the state has also allocated $101 million in taxpayer monies to expedite multifamily low-income housing development to help those displaced by the fires. The Senate bill would allow property taxes to fund what lawmakers are calling resilient rebuilding authorities that could buy ruined land and obtain loans to rebuild. Meanwhile, L.A. County's unhoused population dropped slightly for the second year in a row, according to the latest homeless count from the group LASA, L.A. Homeless Services Authority. Some skepticism over the numbers that were released this week. In fact, the L.A. County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath said the area needs to make more investments towards solving the homeless crisis, and she said at this pace it would take 3 centuries to end homelessness in Los Angeles County. LA City Council members noted there were some doubts about the accuracy of the report that came out today. I'll discuss the latest on LA homelessness and solutions. Coming up later this hour, I'll be joined live by Mark Hood, the CEO of the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, the #1 organization helping the homeless in LA for nearly 135 years. And a prominent Southern California businessman and philanthropist has thrown his hat into the ring for California Governor Stephen CLOOBECK, former CEO of Diamond Resorts, veteran of the hospitality business, and philanthropist who appeared on the TV show Undercover Boss years ago, wants to turn California around and make it more business-friendly. Stephen CLOOBECK will be joining me live later this hour. But right now, joining us live, top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, President and Chief Investment Officer at Winans Investments at winansinvestments.com. Ken Winans, familiar voice, a name on this program and on 790 KABC. He hosts Winning with Winans, heard every Monday night at 6 p.m. right here on 790 KABC. He's also a market historian, author of numerous books. His latest, Investment Atlas 3, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends, Forbes magazine contributor, and he's got his crypto credentials too. And perfect timing for Crypto Weekend. Ken Winans, good afternoon to you, sir.
Good afternoon, Frank. And I am actually talking to you from the Las Vegas Money Show in Caesars Palace. And it's been interesting to, certainly at this point in time with the markets rally and certainly with earnings season kicking off, but there was a lot of discussion about everything you just mentioned. And then also, too, just, obviously with commodities being a big part of my focal point, I wanted to hear what everybody had to say about that. But bottom line is a lot of diverging views about where things go from here, from full-blown bears to people thinking we've got a lot further to go with everything. But again, the focus is on earnings, and it's going to be a very interesting 2 to 3 weeks.
You're live with Ken Winans. Tell us more about some of the big takeaways you're hearing there in Vegas at that money show, which is always very well attended and certainly great timing, good for them and certainly good for us having money shows as well on the air at this critical time. What's the hottest topic there at the moment?
It was actually interesting. As I've gone to so many conferences in my life, as you have, Frank, I mean, we could write a book on those alone. There was a lot of talk about, drill, baby, drill, a lot of interest here in all kinds of special, mainly private investments in oil and gas kind of plays. What was interesting to me was finding out, although we talk so much about crude oil, but we really talk about natural gas. And a lot of focus is on that especially with new power plants coming online. Again, we talk about nuclear, but most of these new power plants will be using natural gas, and that we need to just tap into more of our natural reserves there. And then, of course, the metals. I was really actually interesting to hear so much talk about the breakout in platinum, certainly with gold and silver still on their runs. Actually, I had the privilege, it was kind of fun for me, I had a chance to hold a 7-pound platinum coin. It was a commemorative coin for a Chinese coin, and it went for, somebody bought it for $1.5 million from the group that I believe is called Preferred Coin Exchange. So it's a lot of interesting things going on here. I would say that if there was one kind of disappointment, I would say you would hope that there'd be younger investors coming to these things to learn, but very much it was part of the old guard. A lot of the older investors were here to learn more and try to get a handle on things.
Very interesting. Well, thanks for sharing those insights. It is Crypto Week. You also have your crypto credentials, and you watched Bitcoin hit a record high this week, above 123,000 for the first time. Right now, it's just below 119 here, and a lot riding on these 3 bills that appear to have been stalled yesterday for whatever reason. What do you think is going to happen this week? And the outcome of these 3 bills that are being watched, and the price of Bitcoin once the dust settles.
Frank, I'm very proud of how you and I have covered the whole chronology of things with the Trump presidency, which is hard to believe. It's only really we're just going into the mid of the 7th month, but we had always said that as soon as they were done with the tax bill, the shift was going to happen with the financial modernization or the deregulation, whatever you're going to call it, and crypto was a centerpiece to that. And lo and behold, here we are. When the big beautiful bill was immediately done, poof, Congress shifts their gears to this. It was interesting today talking with various people about crypto, and there's still a lot of people out there who I think whether it's just a general lack of knowledge about it, but one thing that people are definitely warming up to are owning equities tied to crypto or blockchain technology. So I did hear quite a bit about that here today. But no, by all means, I think it's par for the course with everything you and I have long talked about. Congress is doing what they're planning on doing, and I know I mentioned it on one of our previous shows. I just don't think that most people realize, even if you never ever buy Bitcoin in your life, the simple fact of the matter is your financial institutions are going to be using blockchain technologies, and they're going to use cryptocurrencies, for lack of a better term, in doing transactions, in modernizing things. I think the ability to pay for bills in the future, that's all coming. And so I think, again, that's what Congress is wrapping their head around. But, Frank, I'll give one caveat to this entire thing. Rome was not built overnight. And I think that any change in our financial system, and I think, remember, a lot of it is state to state to state. Just because it's happening at the federal level, various states are going to have their say as well. So I think it's going to be a good part of the next couple of years that we're going to see the full build out. But I would just simply say this as far as Bitcoin's concerned, and certainly its breakout. When it broke right through the resistance point that was on everybody's charts, and that includes the trading machines. And I think that any dip right now will be met by new buyers. So, I think it's safe to say that Bitcoin is very much in an uptrend. One other quick thing on it, the Ethereum play. Ethereum is still making up for lost ground, and then of course Solana's the new kid on the block. But a lot of the talk right now is simply about stablecoins. There's a discussion about what's going to happen with stablecoins, how are they going to play through, and I would just say a lot of the regulation that the Senate's going to be working on, I think it's going to really come down to what are we going to do with these stablecoins. And then the last part of that, there's still a lot of talk about the accounting and the regulatory regime that will be around this. And again, there was a lot of talk about in the case of Tether. Tether is still in the news for not complying with GAAP accounting standards. And again, that's a big player in stablecoin. You're going to have those kind of issues resolved before it becomes more mainstream.
On there live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, and NVIDIA at a record high. The Magnificent One continues to shine on the big news this week. That looks like China will be getting their chips after all. NVIDIA above 171 here at the close today. What's your reaction to that big news and the record-shattering performance of NVIDIA, which made it the first $4 trillion company blowing past Apple and Microsoft?
There was one of the presenters here made an interesting comment. He said that here NVIDIA's at $4 trillion, and they said the entire Russell 2000 has a valuation as of now at $1.6 trillion. So it does just put things in perspective. Here's my thought on NVIDIA. I'm an old technical trader. Friend is your friend. You don't want to fight the tape. But I would say this, at this point in time, let's see how the earnings really do look. And it's not just NVIDIA's earnings. It's across the entire tech spectrum. Now, in my case, I happen to be a holder of Broadcom, which is an AI play. It's going to be interesting to see, again, because it's also been doing very well. I think it's going to be fun just to see how this all plays out. But I would just say as a general rule for everybody, we've had an awful nice rally from what happened in April. You're now in the middle of earnings seasons for a big chunk of the U.S. equity markets. I think a little patience is required right now for people to wait and see how do these numbers look. Because, look at the bank numbers. It was mixed. It was very, very mixed. And I think it is going to be stock to stock, not so much industry as we go through the next couple of weeks.
All right, Tesla bouncing around, and Elon Musk back in the spotlight, looking to create his own political party now, and a lot of drama with all that. Tesla up nearly 11 today, back to 321 and change. Circle, which I mentioned earlier, up 38 today, just about to 233 and change. What are your thoughts about some of these water cooler stocks out there?
Or the drama-filled companies, Frank, the ones with celebrity CEOs. Well, Circle, here's Circle's a good play on stable, and of course it literally just went public. I think it was 4 months ago. They see that as the logical play against Tether in the stable coin arena. I would just say this. Whether it is a celebrity stock or it is a new IPO, remember with new IPOs that usually the companies that took them public do have to support them for a period of time. So I think that, we'll just have to see how Circle plays out. But I just think that there's going to be some real interesting surprises during earnings season, and I think it's going to be good and bad. But, the big problem with EVs right now, and you're hearing it especially in a place like Las Vegas or in California, how does it affect demand when you no longer have these tax credits, which end in September? And I think there's going to be a lot of talk amongst the EV companies on their earnings reports for this upcoming quarter, how that will affect them. And I think it's going to get back to normal price war against combustion engines. I actually heard a lot of talk at this conference about hybrids, that hybrids have re-entered the fray of thinking amongst a lot of these companies. So EVs now have to also worry about competition with the hybrid cousins. So there's just a lot of things. But Frank, here's the thing. In addition to looking for positives, I also would just encourage investors, they also have to look at what if companies have bad numbers. So just kind of keep this in mind. If you have a stock or stocks in your portfolio, or even an ETF that's just not acting well because it's in a particular industry group that's having problems, just do remember that, we are entering those summer doldrums for the market, and I'm a big believer in market seasonality, and literally through July, August, September are some typically not great months for the equity markets. It doesn't mean it's a bear market, but it means that you just shouldn't expect a lot of new highs. But I do think what people need to do is get rid of your losers. In this kind of market where valuations are as high as they are, this is just not the time to be trying to catch a falling knife or be, dutifully loyal to a stock. If they're not doing well, get rid of them.
On the live with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. And Ken, you're coming to us from Las Vegas today. Those conferences there are always very well attended. It sounds like the one that you're at right now has drawn a lot of folks. What's the buzz there as far as business is concerned, and a big contrast between here and there as far as business friendliness, which you've been highlighting for us here?
Well, it is interesting that although, and many of the speakers kept telling people, don't confuse politics with your portfolios. They're constantly hearing it, but you can tell that there's a difference in focus between someone's political views. So that was very loud and clear. But one thing, you have to give Vegas credit. We all know it can get rather hot here in the summertime, but I'll tell you right now, as I walk through the casino floors at the big casinos, they're full of people. People are here vacationing, having fun, enjoying themselves. Certainly there's some pretty good deals on things. But, Frank, the one thing I'm noticing more and more are basically, Bitcoin-style machines to get Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, cash them in. And so it's very clear that the Vegas, tourism industry is embracing crypto in various forms. And so it's just kind of fun to see them all over the place right now.
That's very interesting. So you can how does it work with those crypto? Are there crypto slot machines, or what kind of setups do they have there?
Somebody asked me that same question. I don't know, but I tell you what, I will find out for you, Mr. Mottek, and I'll be able to give you a first-hand report. And maybe what I'll do is I'll play one of them live on the air on Mottek on Money one time. No, but you're just noticing it's like an ATM, but you can get Bitcoin. It's just fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's also for the younger generation to be able to do it. But no, there's just a general, I would just say people are generally in really good moods. They're out spending money. You are hearing it. It's funny though, one of the things that we did talk about, and you and I've talked about so many times on the air, it is the price of beef. And there were several people I talked to today that said they had a bit of sticker shock, even in Las Vegas, when they went to order a steak, on just the cost of the cuts right now, because we all know beef prices are just on an absolute tear. So there are some high prices here, but as I said, Vegas is a unique place on planet Earth. There's nothing quite like it, and it's certainly a reason why they have conferences here.
All right. Before I let you off the hook here, Ken Winans, any specific places where you are putting money now and or taking it off the table?
I do. I'm still amazed that people, even after, and by all means, there's an ethical component to this, but it has to do with defense stocks. I'm still finding an awful lot of people are just really, they don't have a lot of them in their portfolio. They are one of the heroes of this entire rally. And I do think as we go through this earnings season, they don't have to be the really big companies, but check out a company like Halmet or certainly Kratos or GE or RTX, any of these kind of companies that more are component or subcontractors to the big defense companies. But I would just say that defense should be a component in people's portfolios, certainly as we go through earnings season. So what I would just tell everybody is maybe lighten up on your tech and add some defense.
All right, Ken, thank you very much for taking the call here, and look forward to speaking with you again on Winning with Winans, which is also airing in Las Vegas these days. So thank you very much. That is top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, the president and chief investment officer at Winans Investments at winansinvestments.com. Ken, look forward to speaking with you again on Winning with Winans here on Monday evening at 6 p.m. on 790 KBC. And we wish you a great time there in Vegas.
Thanks, Frank. Take care.
Thank you very much. And now to the freeways now on 790 KBC. Stocks moving higher today. The Dow up 231 points at 44,255. President Trump saying he's not set to fire the Fed chairman helped to reverse things on Wall Street today, turning the market higher. The S&P 500 up 20 at 6,264. NASDAQ at a record high of 53 points at 20,730. NVIDIA, at another record high, 171.37 at the close today, up another 67 cents. Tesla up nearly 11 at 321 and change, and Circle popped nearly $38 at 233.20. The VIX index, the volatility index, pulling back 1%. The yield on the 10-year note now 4.46%. Gold hovering at $3,357. Platinum up 6 at $1,441 an ounce. Bitcoin right now just below 119. Ethereum at $33.55. Doge at 21 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KBC.
Nightly Scroll with Haley Carania.
Hello to all my homies in the chat. I'm Haley Carania with some very inconvenient truths.
Your go-to place for the hottest button issues.
Don't you hate when facts get in the way of a good news story?
Cut through the noise and get ready to scroll through the chaos of the modern world, one hot take at a time.
Hear me out. We might need to spread this information 24/7. Let's get into some scrolling time.
Nightly Scroll with Haley Carania.
I love this place.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues in 790 KBC. Homelessness near the top of the list of concerns for business people nowadays here in the Los Angeles area. Now the California Senate has passed a bill that would allow Los Angeles to buy fire-ravaged lots to build low-income housing. Governor Newsom says the state has also allocated $101 million in taxpayer funds now to expedite multifamily low-income housing development to help those displaced by the firestorms this year. Looks like lawmakers are meeting again today in Sacramento to discuss a new law moving through the legislature that would allow L.A. to buy lots leveled by the deadly and devastating wildfires to build low-income housing in the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. Also, Los Angeles County's homeless population, according to new numbers out this week, declined slightly for the second year in a row. Those numbers are being viewed skeptically, with L.A. County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath saying the region still needs to make more investments towards solving the homeless crisis. She said, in her words, at this pace, it would take 3 centuries to end homelessness in Los Angeles County. L.A. City Council members also noted there were some doubts about the accuracy of the report, with a recent report by the RAND Corporation suggesting LASA, the group that came out with the numbers, had systemically undercounted homelessness in some parts of the city during the homeless count. Let's bring in Mark Hood now, CEO of the Union Rescue Mission in downtown Los Angeles, the #1 organization helping the homeless here in Los Angeles for nearly 135 years. Mark Hood is the amazing leader of URM and also host of the Just Help One radio show and podcast, which you hear every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. right here on 790 KBC. Mark Hood, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Frank, it's always a pleasure to be with you. How are you today?
Wonderful to have you with us, and I'm sure you're very, very busy, so we appreciate your time here today. Wanted to get your reaction to the latest news on the homeless count and give us the real on what's happening there on the homeless front in downtown L.A.
Well, as far as the homeless count goes, I mean, any move in the positive direction is good news, right? But 4% in the world I came from is almost a margin of error, and at very best, it's slightly down to flat. So when you look at the trend we've had over the past several years, it's either gone up or stayed relatively flat. And although I think a lot of people are working with good intent, I think that we as a LA community should be expecting step change in those numbers. And I for one, am a big believer that working the right way and working together as a community, we can drive that step change. We don't have to keep looking at 4% decreases. We should be looking at double-digit decreases year on year with the right strategy. I think we just got to get the right people at the table to put that strategy together.
And you've done a great job keeping everyone well informed every Thursday evening here at 6 o'clock on 790 KBC on the Just Help One radio show and podcast, which airs right here on 790 KBC, about solutions that Union Rescue Mission has successfully implemented to deal with the overwhelming homeless crisis, and in doing so with virtually no government support, right? Because no drugs and alcohol are permitted at Union Rescue Mission. And this is one thing that comes as a surprise, that important component there at URM.
Well, Frank, that's right. I mean, we personally believe that if you're going to help people recover their lives, it needs to be through sober living. And then, as I've said many times, we're also one of the only missions that bring in women with children and two-parent families. And, on top of being a sober living facility, we want to be a safe living facility. So as you've heard us say many times on our show, we don't want to be known as a shelter. We want to be known as a solution. And for the people that are staying with us, we want it to feel like home, and we want their children to feel safe and the families to feel safe. So we just think it's a more conducive environment towards a true solution towards ending homelessness. And Frank, to that point, if you'll allow me, it's great news that the city has plans to build more low-income housing. It really is. That's exciting. We need that. But we also can't assume that that's the only solution. We certainly have people in the city that low-income housing solves the problem for them. They just don't have the funds to afford housing in LA. But we would be naive in our thinking if we thought that was the only cause of homelessness. And for a lot of people that we move from the street to shelter, we haven't addressed the root cause of why they were homeless to begin with. And that's the reason we see so many people just recycle from shelter back to the street, And that's why I say I think we need to get the right people at the table, because there's a large group of people experiencing homelessness that needs significant care. And I think that's what we're good at Union Rescue Mission, and it's not a quick solution. I mean, to help people break addictions and to overcome trauma like domestic violence or abuse when they were a child and they have not been able to get past that mentally, or they have some other type trauma in their life that has caused them to be in this homeless state, we have to have a model towards helping them past that so they're ready to re-enter the workforce and re-enter society. And in addition to housing, we need to take models that work, and I personally think Union Rescue Mission is one of those models on helping people end that trauma in their life so they're ready to re-enter a healthy society. And we need to duplicate that multiple times across our city. And I'll give you an example. Union Rescue Mission is helping, 1,000 people a night in a model that I think works. If there were 10 models like that in the city that were funded to actually go do what we do so we could fish with a bigger net, instead of 1,000 people a night being helped and moved towards the end of homelessness, you're talking about 10,000 people a night. And in addition to the city building more low-income housing, if you had that model fueling people that were moving into that low-income housing, now then we got a solution that drives step change in our community. And those are the conversations we need to start having.
You're speaking to a business audience here. It should be noted, Union Rescue Mission has the highest possible rating from Charity Navigator and relies on donations from faithful listeners, business people, and right down the line. And you just reminded me that when I used to interview Scott Minerd, a very prominent voice in the business world, a global business and finance guy who worked for one of the major firms many times on this program, and Scott Minerd, of blessed memory, said he felt that the best return on investment on the homeless issue was Union Rescue Mission in Los Angeles, and posthumously he's still the biggest donor at Union Rescue Mission, so we certainly want to honor his memory and all the wonderful interactions and conversations we had here where he spoke so lovingly about the work of Union Rescue Mission, which you're now leading, Mark. So thank you very, very much for coming to the line. Look forward to continuing the conversation every Thursday evening here at 6 o'clock on 790 KBC. Mark Hood, the CEO of URM, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. It was a real pleasure.
Thank you very, very much. That is Mark Hood at Union Rescue Mission. URM.org is their website. And out to the freeways we go now on 790 KBC.
Hello, my loves. It's Lala Kent. Yes, that Lala. And if you're not listening to the Give Them Lala podcast, here's what you're missing out on.
I stayed with my two kids. Mom and Kristen shared a room, and you and Landon shared a room. What the hell is going on? A lesbian couple, a gay couple, and then this
random woman with two kids.
So weird, but to me, it's the most common thing. This is my brother, his best friend, and my mom and her best friend. This is just how we roll. This is called the pod, okay?
Give Them Lala. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. A prominent Southern California businessman and philanthropist is in the race for California governor. Stephen CLOOBECK, former CEO of Diamond Resorts, veteran of the hospitality business, and philanthropist who appeared on the TV show Undercover Boss, by the way, wants to turn California around and make it more business-friendly. Stephen CLOOBECK, thank you very much for coming to the line here this afternoon.
Frank, thanks for having me. You were mentioning one of my dear friends earlier, and business partner, Scott Meinert. Boy, we miss him.
Oh, blessed memory. That's wonderful. Well, let's pick up on that. And we just talked about the homeless issue, which is one of the top issues for everyone here, including the business community. How would you tackle that big issue here in California, as Scott passionately did?
Well, and I worked side by side with him at Union Rescue as a philanthropist, but also with the LA Dream Center. Pastor Matthew Barnett, he and I have worked together for the last 5 years, taking care of 42 homeless families myself, and talked to the folks that have come through the LA Dream Center, and it's one of the best institutions in Los Angeles to tackle those that have been unfortunately unsheltered. And, you know, we've got these great philanthropies in our community that we need to grow about, and our state needs to form public-private partnerships with these and use their great standard operating procedures that show results. Because if you go to the LA Dream Center, for example, we can provide, through the LA Dream Center, housing, shelter, and a pathway to full housing for one-third the cost of what the city's doing. Because there's a lack of execution, there's a lack of accountability, there's a lack of enforcement. And this is what we bring to the table, I bring to the table, as an experienced philanthropist, businessman, and somebody who's worked in public policy, both federally, state, and local, and grew up in Southern California. And you gotta understand how great California is. We're the fourth largest economy in the world, Frank, and we need to be on offense, not on defense, not resist. And there's so many beautiful things to be done here with great leadership.
On the air live with Stephen CLOOBECK, candidate for governor here in California. This is our first conversation, so thank you very much for sharing this with us here and your connection with the late, great Scott Meinert as well. Certainly the issue here of the firestorm recovery is also in focus today, with Sacramento now looking to acquire some of the properties for low-income housing. We're just past the 6-month mark here following the horrific firestorms in the Palisades, Malibu, and Altadena. What would you do to accelerate the recovery process, and what do you think about this latest idea there in Sacramento?
Well, you know, Frank, if you look at AB, I think it's 549, you know, you've got state funding coming in, great, but why should the state mandate and try to revitalize the Palisades when it flies in the face of what Caruso's trying to do with LA Steadfast to accelerate the rebuild of the Palisades and bring in innovative solutions. And I don't know why LA Steadfast isn't, you know, fighting this bill, because it flies in the face of what LA Steadfast is trying to get done. I mean, they're forcing certain types of housing into the Palisades, which is incongruent with what the Palisades is about. And if you're going to rebuild the Palisades as to what it was, which LA Steadfast's mandate is to be, right, or was to be, is to be, I don't know why they're not fighting this harder. I mean, a lot of these philanthropies that have gotten together, where you look at what Magic Johnson's put together with the state under Newsom and what others have tried to do, LA Steadfast, they really haven't shown much movement here, Frank.
That's an excellent point, and we hope to have a chance to speak to Rick Caruso about these latest developments on this program. He is a frequent guest.
If I was Rick, I'd fight this really hard, because it flies
very
in the
interesting.
Face of it flies in the face of what he's trying to get done.
Very interesting, and certainly central planning is anathema to the capitalist system. What would you do to make California more business-friendly overall?
Well, California is closed for business. It's got to be reopened. I've studied California over the last 18 months now, Frank. It's not affordable, livable, nor workable. I built in Southern California in the 80s, we used to be able to get planning approval within 180 days or less and pull our permits in the form of demolition, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and spread them out, where the permitting process was not weaponized by Not in My Backyard, NIMBY, nor the unions. And there were radius clauses around permitting approvals. And we need to go back to that. And what I would do as governor, I would declare an affordability emergency immediately and pause CEQA, pause the Wildlife and Species Act and the Coastal Commission until the legislature wrote legislation that would allow California to be affordable. And it's that simple. And the precedent is, as Governor Newsom did during the fires in Altadena and the Palisades, he actually paused CEQA, Wildlife, Species, and Coastal, so it can be done for the entire state until the legislature drafts legislations where we can not only survive but thrive in the fourth largest economy in the world.
On there live with Stephen CLOOBECK, who's running for governor of California. As a Democrat, by the way, the field is growing, and there might be some other hats going into the ring, but certainly California, a very interesting political environment here, and it sounds like you're a pro-business Democrat.
Well, I'm, if you will, a relic. I'm of the Reagan era. I believe in balance sheet, income statement, and we don't steal, Frank. Eighth Commandment. Proposition 36 didn't go far enough. We don't steal at zero. It's not $950. I know you're surprised to hear that from a Democrat, but that's the way Democrats were. And we should be a party of everyone matters. Everyone matters. We need to have unapologetic, authentic leaders that are proven, that are warm and compassionate. And on immigration, it's really simple. Ms. Harris lost the last election because she has no IQ, no EQ, tone deaf to affordability, eggs, bread, milk, cheese, gas, and immigration. We need sane and humane immigration. Sane and humane.
Stephen CLOOBECK, thank you very much for taking the call. I wish we had more time, but we'll have to stop there. Look forward to many more conversations in the future. Thank you very, very much for taking the call here this afternoon. That is prominent Southern California businessman and philanthropist who has thrown his hat into the ring for the California governor's seat, Stephen CLOOBECK. Thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you very much. And next, it's the 790 KBC News Blitz. I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on 790 KBC.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
The United States have the lead.
The United States in full command.
To the back post, settled, scores! Centering, doubling his tally.
Never miss a game.
Hooks it across, into the middle, and there's the opening goal. 2 for the United States.
Never miss a moment.
Barreling in, cutting in, going for goal, deflected and in! Yeah!
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.